Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Mark My Brain. Now, in today's episode, I will be talking about something that is dear to me, and that is books. Uh, More specifically, I want to share with all of you several books that have recently impacted me. I've chosen 5 books. 3 of them are non-fiction, and 2 of them are novels. So, to balance it out a bit. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. I will introduce each book, talk briefly about it, try not to spoil too much, and give you any recommendations. And let's see if you'll like any of them. So, the first book on my list is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I know I'm a bit late to the party with this one. It's been very popularized recently, but still, I want to mention it because it really impacted me a lot. It is a timeless philosophical masterpiece, uh, and it is basically a 2000 years old personal journal of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, for those who are not familiar with meditations. And it has become one of the key books on Stoicism, or at least the most popular one. So, in this book, in his journal, Marcus writes to himself about his everyday struggles, even getting out of bed, dealing with other people and their nuisance, with existence and mortality, thoughts of death, etc. So, even from the get-go, you can see or feel that a lot of the struggles of the 2000-year-old Roman emperor are very similar to the ones we are dealing with today, or it is something that I can see in myself, at least. So, seeing that one of the most powerful people that have ever lived struggle with the same things as I or we do puts life into a different sort of peaceful perspective, at least for me. The book also does a great job of demonstrating some of the key Stoic principles, as I mentioned, the importance of discipline, that some things are out of our control and very little is actually in our control. The power over one's mind, memento mori, remembering death and trying to live your life to the fullest, and others. So overall, it's a very, very interesting package of, I would say, philosophy, but also very grounded, just journal entries. It's very interesting to see how a Roman emperor 2000 years before our time now thought about certain things and how he dealt with his struggles and everyday problems. And I believe that even if you read it just, I would say, casually, you take away something from that book. Some advice, some ideas, which I believe is helpful. Even just introducing yourself to the new perspective, maybe a slightly different viewpoint on life can be very beneficial. Now, to wrap this one up, I will read you just a few quotes from the book that have stood out for me. So the first one is, "Take away your opinion, and then there is taken away the complaint. I have been harmed. Take away the complaint, and the harm is taken away." The second one is a very simple one. "The universe is transformation, life is opinion." And the last one, "No longer talk about the kind of man that a good man ought to be, but be one." Now, that is very motivational if I've ever heard a motivational quote. So with this one, let's wrap meditations up. It's a very, very interesting book, a very unique book, I would say, and I recommend it wholeheartedly. If you're interested in, philosophy, different thoughts and perspectives on life, give it a read. It's not a long book. You'll see if you like it. Now, continuing on the theme of sort of philosophy and perspective on life, my second book recommendation, I would say, is 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. Now, I know, Jordan Peterson is nowadays a very controversial figure, but still, I find his insights into psychology very helpful and interesting as well. The book, I believe it came out in 2016, but maybe I'm wrong. Don't quote me on that one. So it's a few years old already, but it's a deep dive into the roots of human psychology, I would say. Jordan Peterson, for those who don't know, he's nowadays a very public figure, a public speaker, and has his podcasts and whatnot, but his origins are as a clinical psychologist. Not only that, he also sort of researched some biblical stories and the narrative structures in that and themes and whatnot. So Jordan, in this book, combines his vast knowledge of psychology, philosophy, and wisdom found in biblical stories and symbolism, which he studied, as I mentioned, and forms these 12 rules to follow for a better life. But don't be mistaken, it's not 12 rules like in a sense of some concrete specific advice. They are a bit more abstract. I'll try to give you an example. For example, one of the rules I remember is stand up straight with your shoulders back, which in itself can be sort of confusing, and you have to read through the chapter to understand it. The rules are complex and need the whole context of the chapter to make sense, I would say. But after you read through it and understand, you can see the real value in it, or at least I can. Here I would again like to read you a quote from this particular chapter. To stand up straight with your shoulders back is to accept the terrible responsibility of life with eyes wide open. It means deciding to voluntarily transform the chaos of potential into the realities of a habitable order. It means adopting the burden of self-conscious vulnerability and accepting the end of unconscious paradise of childhood, where finitude and morality are only dimly comprehended. It means willingly undertaking the sacrifices necessary to generate a productive and meaningful reality. If you think there were a lot of fancy words, you are not mistaken. It can be sometimes a bit too much, I would say, for someone. Me personally, I didn't mind. I like this style of writing, but due to that, it's also not the easiest read in the world. The book, thanks to the dense and interdisciplinary information presented, it offers, I would say, new perspective on certain aspects of life and the mechanisms of human psyche, how we humans work and function, and gives the reader sort of guidelines for their journey through the chaos that is life. I think that's a nice way to put it. It's, as I mentioned, a difficult read, but I would also say it's very well put together and very much worth it if you put in the time and really try to understand. I would even go as far as to say that it's still one of the most interesting books I have ever read. I think it fitted very much into what I like and what I try to find in these types of books. So again, I can wholeheartedly recommend it. Again, if you're someone who is sort of interested in these sort of things, in the psychology, philosophy, and how things sort of work in life trying to navigate the chaos of reality and whatnot. Give it a shot, and yeah, I hope you will like it, because I liked it a lot. Now, the third and the final non-fiction book on our list today is How to Have Impossible Conversations, a very practical guide by Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay. It's a book that actually a professor from my university recommended me. I believe I was having a course on critical thinking, and this book sort of fits into that topic. And as the title says, it's a very practical guide to navigate the ever more difficult conversations of this age. I'm sure you know it. You look at the internet and everybody's just arguing. Every point and every opinion explodes into meaningless arguments where people just can't see sometimes reason, and they don't even try to understand the others. And this sort of direction, I would say, that we have been as a society going towards, at least for the past few years, it seems to me. So the book highlights why certain topics are so difficult to debate, why people are often not persuaded by logical arguments, and why rationality in general doesn't work often, or doesn't work well, when we want to persuade someone on an issue they care about, or even that we care about. As you should expect, the authors take lessons from psychology as well as professional negotiators. So again, the book is sort of academically and research backed. It's not something that they just thought of. There is evidence for the things they claim. And yeah, it's super interesting to me, especially in the context of modern day conversations and arguments, especially on the internet. The authors try not to only explain the common issues of persuasion and debate and negotiation, but they also try to give you a very specific techniques and advice in relation to different situations. The nice touch of the book is that it's divided into chapters based on sort of your conversational level, meaning you start learning the basic techniques first and start with the fundamental understanding of why we think like that, why we have hard time accepting other opinions, and these sort of things. And then you slowly move through the book and you work your way up to the advanced stuff, which is from structural point of view very, very nice, and it makes the book much easier to read and progress through. It's a very interesting and today practical book. I think it's a very nice way to summarize it. For me, it was an eye-opener to why people might behave or react in a certain way that oftentimes frustrates us, or frustrated me. And I would say it's not only about the persuasion and manipulation. It can maybe you can maybe think that it's going in that direction of manipulation, but it's not really it. I would say the foundation of all the techniques and all the ideas is just empathy and trying to understand the other person more, which in itself is a very nice thing to do. So again, give it a shot if you have been maybe wondering why people are so tense about certain topics, why they can't accept other opinions and similar. Give it a shot, and again, I hope you will enjoy it as much as I did. And now, coming to the two novels I have chosen here. The first one is 1984 by James Orwell. It is a timeless classic that depicts a dystopian grey world under totalitarian government. For those who are not familiar with this title, it tackles the themes of misinformation, control, and in general the dangers and perversions of authoritarian regimes. And it depicts all of those issues and all of those themes in a very gruesome and, I would say, brutal detail. There is a story. The main protagonist is Winston, and he goes on this sort of personal journey in this kind of world, which may or may not have a happy ending. And the often dreadful and grim story highlights some similarities between patterns of today's informational war, I would say, and the fictional dystopian world. So it really impacts you if you pay attention. The book was originally designed as a warning against authoritarian, totalitarian governments, against fear-mongering, the misuse of information, brainwashing, and absolute control, even over information, history, and even language. It is all very well described in the book. And this novel is actually the origin of the saying "Big Brother is watching you." In the book, it's about the propaganda and psychological manipulation from the side of the government. Especially interesting is, for example, the topic of doublethink that is prevalent in the book. Doublethink is basically you holding two contradicting opinions and believing both of them at the same time. Orwell describes it much more in the detail, but that's basically the gist of it. It's about even forgetting a certain information completely if the situation needs it, or if the party, the government needs it. But then immediately, if they need you to remember it, you pull it out of the memory and then forget it again, honestly. And it's scary. It's it's interesting, but it's scary, I would say. You also see in the book the loss of independence and identity in a world and regime like this. Orwell depicts it in much detail. The extreme, often brutal lengths to which totalitarian governments can go to remain in absolute power and control. The horrors of that world that is depicted in the book is contrasted, though, with glimpses of hope for a happy ending, which maybe it's not a big spoiler, but in the end is taken away, and you, the reader, are left with sort of broken illusions, sense of dread and sadness, or at least that was it. That was how it was for me. And returning to the point that the book should serve as a warning, I can say that at least again for me it really works. The story gives you a lot to think about and ponder, and puts current events and political tendencies, I would say, into a different light. So it's hard to grasp and nicely summarize it, but it's a very unique book written in 1949, and it holds so well still today, and it is maybe even a bit scarier, I would say, because now you can much clearly see all that is going on in the wired world and how things work. And the common populace has more understanding on how things work and has access to much more information than, I would say, the people had in 1950. But yeah, I really recommend everyone to read this book. It's not a hard read. The story is interesting, captivating, uh, and it makes you really think and makes you feel something, which is also, I would say, important when it comes to books. So yeah, give it a shot. 1984 by James Orwell. And last but not least, we have The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I put The Lord of the Rings here to sort of contrast the gruesome and brutal world of 1984, because this novel, or this epic tale that the book tells, or books, because the story is divided into 3 books actually, but it's a one coherent, complete story. So that's why I put it here under one name. Uh, the epic tale, is set in a fantasy world of Middle Earth, and in contrast to 1984, where most of the themes are very grim, I would say that in Lord of the Rings you can find a lot of the positive, hopeful, shining things and themes that uplift you. The premise of the book or the story is very simple. There is a quest to bring the Ring of Power into the fiery mountain where it was forged, and to destroy it, and hence destroy the evil that's spreading in the world. It sounds very simple when you put it like that, but believe me, the story is very intricate, and it's in the details, the intricacies, and the depth of the world and its characters that these things are what make the story so special. It's hard to talk about it without spoilers, but still I will try. The world is super, super immersive and painted with such detail, thought, and care. You can feel it. Its sceneries, history, locations, mythology, and languages. It all comes together so well, and you can feel the layers of thoughts put on one another to make this story and this world as much immersive and to make it feel really lived in as much as possible. Even though the story deals with the absolute evil, it's never, I would say, brutal or bloody, for example, in the sense that Game of Thrones may be. There's always, I would say, an all-encompassing sense of nobility, uh, or hopefulness, be it through the highest importance of the ultimate quest, or through the character arcs or moments of the main characters. More abstractly, I would say the story is about how the smallest spark of hope can fight and even triumph against all odds and against the immense power of evil and darkness. And if something is motivational or uplifting, this is it. Now, Tolkien himself said that the story plays to the themes of death and mortality and the desire to escape it. And when you read through it, you can definitely sense it. The desire to remain here, to hoard memories, and remain here. It's definitely one of the central themes. But I would add to it that there are many, many themes. They are vast. Mortality, loyalty, sacrifice, temptation, even, of using evil means for good purposes, duty, loss, and much more. You go through all of these ideas and thoughts during the span of the whole story. You see the characters struggle on these issues, and not only does it make it so relatable because you realize that you yourself might be thinking in a similar way, or you are unsure if you would be able to do the right thing in a given moment. So again, it makes you think and hopefully motivate you to try and be better, you know. For me, for example, I would say that the book tries to hold me to sort of higher character standard, and it acknowledges that all things and adventures must come to an end as well, and that it is all right. The main thing I take away from the story is this, that all things end and that it is all right and, you know, inevitable. But also I feel hope, a sense of hope that is, as I mentioned before, sort of all encompassing. Even in the darkest moments, you still hold on onto it and still see some of the glimpses of it, and you, the reader, believe in the characters. You have hope that the characters will behave in the right way and that they will push through and pull through whatever problems or challenges they are facing. And it's, again, I am repeating myself, but it's very uplifting. So, The Lord of the Rings, I don't know how much more I can say about it. I recommend it wholeheartedly. You know, if you are at least a bit interested, if you ever thought about reading The Lord of the Rings, I would say this is your sign to do it. I am almost 100% sure you will not regret it. It's a beautiful story, beautifully crafted world. The story arcs are so good, and the overarching themes, you know, fill you and you really feel them. So on that note, I will say goodbye now. I hope that you took away something from today's sort of laid back episode. I really like reading and talking about books, so if you, dear reader, have some recommendation, let me know. And yeah, hopefully I've inspired you to read some of those books I talked about. So that's about it for today, and goodbye.